Hello there, Brick Fanatics. So I've got a bit of a story to tell you. I decided I was going to try and be really clever with the McLaren P1. I thought to myself, I'll take it outside into the wild and I'll film it as if it's an episode of Top Gear. And I'll have all these fancy camera angles and I'll make it look really swish and cool. I even considered trying the Jeremy Clarkson voice, but I did it for like 3 seconds and it made me feel physically ill to pretend to be him, so I dropped that very quickly. Now, unfortunately, the spot that I picked to try and film this happens to be a very popular dog walking spot, and so there were a lot of people wandering past, giving me very quizzical looks as I'm lying flat on the ground trying to film this thing. But there was one man that walked past, maybe mid-50s I would say, with his dog, who spotted the McLaren and immediately said, "Oh, that's a nice bit of kit, that. McLaren." And I was like, yes, he recognises it. That is proof positive that if you are not in the LEGO Technic sphere, you can still tell exactly what this is. But he approached from behind the set and he saw this part first, and I do really feel like that is the crux of this review, and I think the crux of many complaints that I have seen about this set is that if you look at it from behind, absolutely McLaren, and if you look at it from the front, not so much. In case you are not aware, this is LEGO Technic 42172 McLaren P1. It is made up of 3,893 elements, and it is an absolute beast to put together. This had to be one of the lengthier builds that I have ever had in my life. A solid 11 hours almost of building time to put together just this absolutely gorgeous, detailed, high-performance vehicle in LEGO form. And if you're the kind of person who loves these high-performance cars, and if you're the kind of person who loves a really complicated Technic build, I absolutely guarantee you are not going to be disappointed with this set, because it feels like a joy to construct. It feels like you are building a real car from scratch, because you've got all of those gears and pulleys and levers that all click together piece by piece, and you build it up from nothing to this whole bit. And I know that's how all LEGO works, but something about doing it in LEGO Technic and doing a fancy sports car like this, and knowing that McLaren cars are all built from scratch by hand anyway, it just helps the entire experience to feel like you are assembling something that is a cut above the rest, something that feels like more than just a LEGO set. This is apparent throughout the entire build. The box for the set is an absolute delight just to open, and you can definitely tell from the moment that you peel back the stickers and lift off the cover of the box that this is something premium. This is something that has had a little bit more thought and care and attention put into it than most LEGO sets. This is the latest in the delightful Ultimate Car Concept series, which are all very big, very substantial LEGO Technic builds that recreate iconic and famous hyper or supercars. Chances are high that if you are just dipping your toes into LEGO Technic, this is probably not going to be the place that you start. Some people may be just so into the McLaren brand that they've decided that this is the one that they absolutely have to have in LEGO form. And if that's the case, and if you've not done any of these builds before, just to give you a kind of a brief introduction to LEGO Technic. Technic is, I would say, a little bit more complicated and a little bit more difficult to put together than traditional LEGO system, where there are fewer of the kind of the brick style pieces and a lot more of the pins and the gears and the pulleys and the little tiny crossbar pieces, some of these things that just, they're a little bit more tricky to put together, and it's going to take you a little bit longer. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this means that you then get an actual, like a long, lengthy, enjoyable build process, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But I just want you to be aware, if the McLaren is the car for you and you are picking up this set because of that, you are going to have a slightly more difficult time adjusting to LEGO Technic than you might to LEGO System if you're only familiar with System. At the same time, I'm not saying that that's in any way a barrier to entry. I'm not saying that you will not get your hands around this fairly quickly and that you'll just be able to pick it up. I'm just saying that if you don't have a huge amount of experience with LEGO Technic, this is going to be a bit of a learning curve, and that's not a bad thing. This is actually quite a fun set to put together. It surprised me because I'm not going to say dread is the right word, but I was apprehensive about having to put this thing together, especially on a tight deadline for a review, and making sure that it was all done in time, and knowing that I was going to be sinking a lot of time into to it, but it went as a breeze, like, 11 hours or so of my life, that I genuinely had a good time of putting piece into piece into piece, and then seeing how all of the little things click together and how the mechanisms would whir and spin and how things would turn. And there's a wonderful engineering quality to this, where obviously what I'm doing is building a very complicated, but what is essentially a toy. But I feel like I'm doing something more than that. I feel like I'm making something just wonderful and glorious, and I'm beginning to live out the engineering or mechanic fantasy in something which is a little bit more digestible than actually building a real car. Now, if you've seen the previous video on this channel on the set, or if you've seen any of the coverage at brickfanatics.com, you will know that McLaren and the LEGO Group invited us to the McLaren headquarters for a special unveiling for the set. And you would be justified in worrying just a little bit, are you an unbiased source of information about this set? Can the review be taken at face value? Are you impartial, having had something of a lavish experience at the McLaren headquarters? And I'm going to be honest with you, I would say that it has impacted my views on this set, but not necessarily in the way that you might think. Because for all that this is an absolutely gorgeous and delightful LEGO Technic build, it's not a real McLaren P1, and seeing the real car next to this car in the home of McLaren, surrounded by literal Formula One race cars everywhere, this thing, it doesn't shine brighter than all of that actual McLaren history. Indeed, I came away from the event thinking, oh, it was really cool to see the McLaren factory. Oh yeah, and I also got to see the LEGO set. Does that make sense? I'm not saying that this isn't great. I'm just saying that it was not the standout experience from going to McLaren's headquarters. And indeed, coming away from that, I remembered a lot of other stuff there better than I remembered this LEGO set. It wasn't then until I got the review copy for the set and started building it that I realized, oh no, this is actually cooler than I remembered it being. This is a pretty sweet build. It's just that it was somewhat overshadowed by all of the other stuff that happened that day. Quite aside from anything else, having this in my home, I've realized just how big it is, and it is really impressive, like just in terms of the scale here, because yes, there are a lot of really nice LEGO Technic cars, but you don't get better than this collection when you want something that is just absolutely the biggest and the best that you can possibly get from LEGO Technic. As for how it stacks up against some of the other cars in the Ultimate Concept Car series, that will depend on personal preference, and I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these cars. Like, some people are going to like some of these cars more than others. I think personally, I'm a little bit more a fan of the Lamborghini. I think that the color of that one is really nice. This yellow is cool, and it is a really nice color to have, but as you can see, I've already got quite a lot of this color just on my desk, and so it doesn't add a lot of extra pop to the collection of LEGO sets that I have here. If you, on the other hand, have got the Lamborghini and have got the Ferrari, then this nice yellow pairs well with that. It's not minifigure yellow, it's that slightly warmer, kind of slightly orangey yellow shade, and I definitely think it's a good choice here. It looks really nice. It suits the car very well. I know some people in the comments for the last video were saying, oh, I wish that we could have had the grey or the silver McLaren colour instead. And yes, that would be nice, but it would be a lot more muted on the shelf, I feel. It wouldn't really stand out as much, whereas the bright yellow does definitely make this an eye-catching piece. I've not had this with a lot of LEGO sets in the past, but this is certainly one where I've left it on the shelf, I've gone out of the room, I've been doing other things, I've come back in and I've looked at it and thought to myself, oh, that is a nice LEGO display piece. And you don't get that with every single set. Some sets kind of just emanate this quality of displayability more than others, and this is definitely one that feels like a very nice display-worthy set. Now, with any Technic set, you're going to have a lot of cool functions on display, and so we've got the kind of some of the classics, like the boot opens, the rear spoiler moves up and down with a little wheel that you can turn, and the doors open and close, and you've got this wonderful mechanism here, which must have, it took a long time apparently to build this mechanism. And you can kind of tell because there's just ever so slightly, not every time I opened it, but ever so slightly, there's sometimes just this little, it catches for a second and it doesn't quite do it right. And that might honestly be that I haven't quite put these doors together, because I don't remember the one of these or the couple of these that I saw at the McLaren event having that same issue. And so it might be that I've just put a pin in the wrong place, but there's just this slight hang up that means it's not quite as fluid as it could be. But it's definitely, I can tell that that was a mechanism that took a lot of work to put together. You've also got, like many of the cars on this scale, you've got an engine inside with little pistons. You can't see that very well in this one compared to some of the other cars in this collection. And I do think that that's another thing that counts against this one, where the engine is a little bit more hidden deep within the bowels of the McLaren, as opposed to some of the others where it's a little bit more prominent, and so you can see the pistons moving a little bit more clearly. You've also got steering in this set. If I lift this up, the front wheel will steer if I turn the steering wheel, and you've got a clutch that works and changes gears in there as well, and that's all very nice. This is all fairly standard stuff for cars in this collection, so all of them have that functionality, and it's a blessing to see it here as well, but it's not something that necessarily wows me, having seen it in other sets in the past. If this is going to be your first of the collection, that's all going to be a lot of fun. It's all going to be very novel to you. If you've got a couple of these already, you're not going to be super surprised by any of that. You would just be slightly disappointed if it didn't have that functionality, of course. There's also, as with all of these in the collection, a little piece of luggage, which I'm storing in the front. I don't know if that's necessarily where it's supposed to go, but that's the place that seemed the most logical to put it, because that's where it goes in some of the other sets. But I don't think, unless I was misremembering, I don't think I saw anything in the instructions that explicitly said pop that in the front, but that's just, I feel like that's a standard for this particular collection. But okay, it's all well and good saying this is a continuation of a series that we've already got, and all of these cars are very nice, and that's true across the board. The question is, how does this particular model stack up? How well does it, how faithfully does it recreate the McLaren curves? And I do really feel like that is one of the big challenges with this set. The real McLaren is a curvaceous car, and that is something that is very difficult for LEGO to replicate, even LEGO Technic. A lot of the specifics of the curves of this car have been quite difficult to get right, and while it works very well on the back of the car and to a certain degree on the side and in the door, you've got that lovely design here, the front is really where things fall down. The real McLaren P1 has this kind of nostril design to it, which looks absolutely brilliant and very, very iconic. And here you can see, especially at this angle, which is why I'm holding it like this, you can see how they've really tried to get an approximation of that in LEGO form. But if you look at it from any other angle, it doesn't really look right. It just looks like a more generic kind of bonnet that's been replicated as best as possible with LEGO Technic. The other area that I've seen a lot of people point to, and I agree entirely with this, is the way that the headlights have been designed, with the use of these white elements to kind of give an approximation of the headlights. And it doesn't really look anything like the source material at all. And it's a real shame, because those two issues are really the only thing that are glaringly wrong with what is otherwise an absolutely phenomenal, very impressive recreation of the McLaren P1. It feels like nitpicking, but at the same time, when you're dealing with something that is a £400 LEGO set, I feel like you're entitled to nitpick a little bit, because you want everything to be absolutely perfect. Everything else works, everything else is fairly flawless, I would say, but just those little details on the front mean that it is not quite right. And obviously how much that is going to bother you will depend on your own personal preference. And some people are going to be okay with it, and some people are going to be a little bit more disappointed with it. But it's just worth bearing in mind if you are a real car head and you want something that is going to be as close to a McLaren as possible. That said, as mentioned, random guy on the street was instantly able to tell that this was a McLaren. Like, he didn't need any kind of prompting whatsoever. He saw this and said, that's a McLaren P1. So clearly the car is doing a lot of things right. And the fact that there are just a few little things that just don't quite sit perfectly, I mean, that's fairly standard of any LEGO set. I think you would have a hard time finding a LEGO set that looks absolutely one-to-one perfect with its source material. And we wouldn't necessarily want them to either, because half the fun of building a LEGO set set is doing something in LEGO form. And if something were absolutely perfect, you might as well just be building Airfix. And no one wants to do that. Looking forward to getting some hate from the Airfix community in the comments. If that is you, hello, nice to see you. Thank you for watching this far into the video. All in all, I absolutely recommend the McLaren P1. I think that this is a spectacular LEGO set. I think it's a brilliant continuation of this series of really nice, very highly detailed luxury LEGO sets. I think personally, as said, I prefer the Lamborghini slightly, but that is entirely personal preference. And if that's not the one for you, then that's absolutely fine. If this is the one for you, you are not going to be disappointed. You are going to get a really substantial, really enjoyable build that is going to be thoroughly fun from start to finish and is going to leave you at the end with something that you can put on display and really be satisfied with. And people will come into the house and they will say, oh, that is a nice LEGO car that you've got there. And you can say, why, thank you very much. I built it myself following the instructions. Anyway, that is the LEGO Technic McLaren P1. Let us know your thoughts on the set down in the comments. Also, make sure that you do all of the rest of the YouTube things, so give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe and the notification bell. If you're going to be making a LEGO.com purchase in the near future, either the McLaren or something entirely different, make sure that you use the affiliate link, which is down in the description, or the QR code that is currently on screen. Doing so just gives us a little bit of the percentage of your purchase. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps to keep the lights on at Brick Fanatics. Make sure, speaking of, that you go to brickfanatics.com for all of your LEGO Technic news, and make sure that you sign up to our newsletter so that you never miss anything LEGO related ever again. Thank you very much for watching.